Hello everyone and welcome to the Far Too Nice for the Pair of Us surrounds of the UCI headquarters in Aigle, Switzerland. My name is Ric McLaughlin. I'm the lead commentator for Warner Brothers Discovery Sport on mountain biking. And joining me is, I'm proud to say, my friend, colleague, Australian man of danger, Josh Carlson. Josh, we're here to talk about the 2024 UCI Mountain Bike World Series, the gravity side of things, the good stuff. Are you excited about this one?
Super excited.
I should point out you're excited about most things, so...
Yeah, watch it, because I'm easily excitable, especially when we're talking about downhill and enduro. But there's been so many changes over the off-season and the pre-season coming into this year. Some of the performances we had in 2023 were just outstanding. So to come into this year with all of those expectations and excitement and new team changes, it's really, really cool.
Gravity, of course, this season, downhill enduro and E-EDR. We're going to go through them round by round, get Josh's hot take on them. As you say, Josh, a lot of team changes. We'll cover those off in a separate video in gravity. First up though, 3rd to the 5th of May, Fort William in Scotland, downhill only. You know, we look at the endurance side of the sport, the cross-country mob, they're going to 2 brand new venues for the start of their season. An old familiar in Fort William, isn't it? It's had a big race there pretty much every year, bar the COVID year, since 2002. And it's still a really unique test, isn't it?
Unique test, and the first race of the year to have such a long and physically demanding track. It's really going to test out those new riders on the new teams and their equipment, their wheels, their tyres, their setups, their off-season preparation. Usually by the time we get to Fort William, you've got some races under your belt and your setup is dialed. To show up to Fort William, first race, first setup, you can test and prepare all you want through the off-season and pre-season, but there's something about that first race day, the level lifts, your speed lifts, everything goes a little bit more, and then you step up and go further again. You cannot get that level in training and pre-season preparation. So to start there at a famous venue, and especially after the turbulent and exciting World Championships we had there last year with Charlie Hatton and Valley Hole, it's going to be exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 real standout performances last season. Valentina Hole, her race run there, virtually no mistakes anywhere in it. And Charlie Hatton, just in the mud, in the rain.
In the worst of the worst.
He'll have massive support there this season.
Massive support.
Home race for him, first out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think he might have got that kind of World Championship curse out of his way. Like the pressure he mentioned the last couple of races of the 2023 season, having those rainbow bands was a lot. There was a lot of weight on his shoulders, a lot of extra curricular activities. It's a lot of pressure to be world champion. It's a lot of pressure to take on all of those extra activities and bits and pieces that it comes with, the obligations, with the sponsors. You're the dude with the rainbows. And for the team, for the Atherton team, it's a lot.
It's a weird thing as well, isn't it, the UCI World Champion stripes? We've seen a lot of big names win them before a UCI World Cup ride. Loic Bruni did it, Reese Wilson did it, Charlie's still in the hunt for that UCI World Cup win #1, so why not do it in the same place you won your last big race? Fort William, huge race. It's one crowd of the season, multiple seasons. The British crowd, they make that big pilgrimage up north, and there isn't really an atmosphere like it. And also, one of the more, when you look down the list this season, one of the really weather affected tracks. It's a really peculiar mix. You actually want a bit of moisture up top to keep it sort of rolling, that more hard pack, carry speed into it, but then those woods down the bottom, that's where the time lives on that track.
For sure, and the wind compared to many tracks that we see throughout the season, the wind of the jumps in the motorway section down the bottom, it's so exposed up on that Nevis range that it can have seconds worth of effect. And our new downhill racing now it's hundredths or thousandths of seconds difference between our athletes. So that can really play a big part. You can get a bit of a blowy run up the top there and it can cost you 2 seconds. You can get stuck on the motorway down the bottom and then all of a sudden you hit 57 instead of 59 or 60 kilometers an hour. It's a really weather dependent track, that one.
Amaury Pierron back in action, we hope, provided he comes out the rest of this off-season unscathed. He's won Fort William 4 times already. He'll be licking his lips to get that one, won't he?
For sure. That entire Commencal factory team, Miriam Nicole is returning, Dylan Maples stepping up to the big show, Amaury's on the return. It's going to be very interesting to see. They're going to have some Australian racing throughout the pre-season to get their feet wet again. Amaury's breakthrough season was after an Australian summer worth of preparation, so maybe he's chasing that glory again. You can't rule him out. I mean, he's an exceptional athlete. He knows what it takes. He knows the level, and he'll be hungry to get back up the top of our result sheet sooner rather than later.
Well, after you finish doing your bit for the Australian Tourisport, 10th or 12th of May, we head to Finale Outdoor Region for the first Enduro World Cup, the first E-Enduro UCI World Cup of the season. And again, we talk about Fort William being a big, familiar beast. Finale Outdoor Region, Finale Ligure, Pietra Ligure, they are just some of the best fun you can have on a trail bike anywhere, aren't they?
And an amazing location, just like Fort William for the downhill. Finale Outdoor Region is iconic for enduro. It's sort of the home of enduro for many, many, many years now. The racing is phenomenal year in, year out. They have such a diverse selection of trails to choose from. And to start the season there, you know, it's an amazing way to kick off. I think we're going to see a big rise this year in the E-Enduro World Cups and the racing there. There's quite a big shift of athletes that have been moving across to E-Enduro for 2024. So that's going to be amazing to see. Do we have to pause?
Helicopter there, probably Nino Shorter. Especially E-Enduro. I mean, this is a part of the world. It's at the pointy bit at the end of the spear, isn't it, for an e-bike and what can be done on e-bikes. And I mean, what a place to get things underway.
What a place. We had some amazing races the last couple of years. I mean, one of the first e-bike races, E-Enduro World Cups I did in Finale a few years ago was close to 8 hours, 40 degrees. It was extraordinary. So to start the season here, there's a few team changes, a couple of the big names that are back in form, back fitter and faster and stronger than ever.
And the bike tech as well.
Yeah.
Enduro, I think more than any other format, steps up every year, doesn't it?
It does. The motors are becoming a lot more equal across the board now. It's been harder the last couple of years, and last year the speed, it was kind of the same as our regular Enduro World Cup racing, which a lot of people didn't expect. A lot of our times and speed was just as fast as the top 10 in the Enduro World Cup. So I really see that growing this year. And to have the entire Enduro World Cup start in Finale, to see if the likes of Isabeau, Jesse, Richie, Jack, there's so many phenomenal athletes that I think will really, really enjoy that starting place and kick their season off on a high.
Isabeau Courtourier, really interestingly, has never won an individual Enduro World Cup in Finale Ligure.
Is that right?
She's won twice as part of Team France Trophy of Nations.
Right.
That would be a good one to tick off early doors, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right that wrong, really.
Oh, for sure. And the female racing is just getting closer and closer every single year, and it's getting tougher for someone who's been so dominant like Isabeau to dominate the way that she has the last couple of years.
Right, after that then we, obviously a quiet night in Finale after the race, as it always is. We decamp, put the bikes in some boxes and head to Poland. Bielsko-Biała, an absolutely phenomenal venue. A good friend of mine lives there and he's been after me for years to go out and ride there. Downhill, E-Enduro and Enduro World Cups, a brand new venue in Eastern Europe. And those boys, we met them last week at an LOC event in London. They're pushing hard and they're super pumped to bring mountain biking to their part of the world and showcase it.
And it's always an amazing experience when that happens, when the LOC and the local, organisers from a brand new country and a brand new venue are behind the event itself. It just makes the athletes push even more and enjoy the process. There's so many cool things about exploring the world through mountain bikes and through enduro. I mean, it's reminiscent of the early days and when it was all just a breakthrough discipline. And now to have this opportunity to explore somewhere like Poland for downhill and enduro and e-enduro, it's going to be a fantastic round too.
I think as well, like we saw it in Ludenviel-Peyregout last season where we'd had an Enduro World Cup before and then they built a downhill track. And everybody was kind of like, what's this downhill track going to be like? And it was one of the tracks of the season. I mean, like, you've got these big names, your Fort Williams, your Mont St. Anne's, the pillars of the sport on the calendar. But it's great to see these new venues come through as well. And for the racers, ask some real questions. Who can adapt quickly?
And bike setup. You know what's going to break at Fort William. You know what's going to happen at
everything.
Basically everything.
In somewhere including your will.
As we get down the schedule like Val d'Isole and Leogang and Mont Saint Anne, you kind of know what to expect to a degree. You know the dirt, you know the routes, the rocks, the people, the terrain, the language, the food. Somewhere like Poland is a brand new venue. It's a lot of variables that you don't exactly know yet. You cannot control every single thing or be prepared for it. So that's a new aspect that we haven't had in a little bit.
certainly enduro and e-enduro wise, a lot of racing in Bielsko-Biała on. They're the trail network's called the Enduro Trails.
Oh, it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that one.
Really cool.
Next up then, downhill, e-enduro and enduro in Salfenden, Leogang, Salzburger Land in Austria. Leogang, one of those really long serving venues. I think about 15 years or so it's been on the calendar, and a really experienced, committed team there. They had their first enduro side of things last time out. How do you think that went? What changes do you think we'll see this year?
I think they learned a lot from last year. It was a good first Enduro World Cup there, good first E-Enduro World Cup, but there was a lot of things they can learn from and adapt to make this year even better, and I'm expecting a fantastic event schedule layout for Enduro and the E-Enduro this year in 2024. No cross country there this year. It's just enduro and downhill, which I think will bring them all together.
Harrowing cross country track and
brutal. I'm not mad about that one bit.
Yeah.
So I'm really expecting a much better and a more polished setup and schedule this year in Leogang. The riding there is phenomenal. The riding throughout all of Austria, especially Leogang, it's been one of those tracks that's famous in the world of downhill and the world of gravity. So to go back there in 2024, I'm really, really excited to check it out.
It's always a really good downhill race in Leogang. It's full of drama. The speed is incredible. Like, there was a period towards the mid to sort of late 2000s where they seemed to get a lot of stick about how it's too bike parky, it's too fast, and every year they listened and they added stuff and they made it more and more difficult. And now the speeds are so high that the times are so tight. You actually are guaranteed good racing. And we saw Valentina Ho win her first Leogang race there last time out as an elite, and then Andy Kolb took the win for the men's and sent them into raptures. And that was, I think, if we're sitting here 10 years from now, all being well, Andy Kolb's win with Valentina Ho, that Austrian double will be a huge race. That'll be seen in the annals of that sports history.
You couldn't script that any better. It's just a phenomenal scenario for the country of Austria. Young generations and the new generations of athletes coming up. If you were there as a teenager watching it on telly, watching it live, and you saw that, there's no bigger inspiration than your local hometown heroes winning. It's a phenomenal scenario. And now we're going back there. I think the pressure's going to be on someone like that. Andy Kolb had an amazing year and season, really solidified who he is as a big dog of our sport.
But before we came into recording this, we did just see a social media post that he has broken. What was it?
Young mate has ran right out of talent and broken his radius bone in his hand. He's had to leave New Zealand to come home early to get that sorted and fixed. It is early enough. There is enough time to be prepared, but injuries like that really mess up your momentum coming into the season. You just mentioned how fast and how tight the times are, especially at Leogang. We're talking June when this race is, so there's plenty of time to get back up to speed, but little things like that just become slight chinks in the armor. And then all of a sudden you don't take the time, you rush it back, and there's a race in May, Fort William, you got to be ready. I really hope that doesn't derail the momentum of him.
Heal up Andy Kolb.
Yep.
And after Leogang then, we head 14th to 16th of June to the Black Snake, Val di Sole, Trentino in Italy for downhill only. There's cross country there, of course, as well with the gravity side of things, just downhill. We had a conversation in the car on the way here this morning about if I could actually get down that track. I think it probably hangs in the balance, and I might need a day or two to do it. But
it's one thing to get down it. You could ride it. You could jump off this building too. I wouldn't say it's a good idea.
I'd probably get to the bottom of Val di Sole before I get to the bottom of this building.
Your legs wouldn't be as sore if you jumped off this thing.
It's such. I mean, you look at the tracks that have come before. Granted, we don't know what Poland's going to be like, but Val di Sole is just such a technical test, isn't it?
And it's got that folklore about it. Like when you talk about Val di Sole, the initial reaction is like, oh, the Black Snake, oh, my arms, oh. And they did a phenomenal amount of work last year. They really upped the speed. The track was in a fantastic condition, even with a bit of mixed weather. So the track itself is getting more, you can't say easy, but more sustainable and more raceable, I would say. It's not so much about survival, you have to race. Now, of course, I'm not saying that takes away from the physical nature of it or the survival nature of it, but you can race the track now.
I thought it was a really interesting sort of paradox last year where they dumped an amazing amount of material on that track to try and fill in some of those holes, make it smoother and make it safer. Of course, you're talking about the world's best gravity racers. All they did was make it really, really fast.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
For
like,
sure.
if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I kind of think, well, after a year to settle all that material, that's going to be one of the big races of the season. And we mentioned Fort William at the top of this. Also, a really weather affected. I mean, it's a mountain sport. We're in the mountains.
Yeah.
Everything's weather affected, but we've seen weather play a big factor. Val di Sole last year, it kind of came in the middle of the race, the elite men's race, and then by the end of it, all of a sudden the time started tumbling again. So definitely one to keep an eye on. We'll have our umbrellas at the ready for that one. Next up, 12th to 14th of July, you are off to the Aletsch Arena in Switzerland. One of Europe's biggest glaciers. That generally says big mountains.
Big mountains. Switzerland always delivers with enduro races. We've had some phenomenal races over the years around Zermatt, Crans-Montana. It's big mountains. That's what enduro was made for. So to go to another brand new venue for 2024 is phenomenal, and to check out how our riders deal with this. Going to venues that we've been to before, like Leogang, like Finale, you know what to expect. You have an idea of what to expect. They will use some of the similar tracks that we've seen before, but you know the terrain, you know the area, you know the food. Brand new Swiss venue. No one exactly knows what to expect, and that's an amazing way to finish our first block here.
I think as well with the race in Aletsch, when the Enduro World Cup went to Zermatt, and then it was announced that the Swiss venue would change to Crans-Montana, and everybody kind of went, oh, it's going to be very similar to Zermatt. It's going to be open, wide, fast, chunky rock.
No.
And then we went to Crans-Montana, and it wasn't. It was old bike park in the steep, fresh loomers.
Yep.
Everybody's kind of going, we've been to this part of the world before, but also it can mean anything.
Switzerland could be anything. Yeah, it's so much varied terrain. You could be up in the high alpine in the snow and the rocks and the exposure. You could be down in the deep, duffy, loamy woods. It's a really, really cool scenario that Switzerland offers, and it's going to provide some fantastic racing. And by that point, we're really going to be into the nitty-gritty of the season and see who's establishing themselves as a championship threat, championship hope, who's had a lackluster start to the season. They're reasonably close together, the first few races, so there's not much time to adapt and fix what you may have done right or wrong in the off-season, pre-season.
It's the penultimate round of the Enduro World Cup, of course, Aletsch Arena this season. Then we have a big mid-season break for something called the Olympic Games in Paris. Of course, no gravity sports in that, but interestingly, I guess from a racer's point of view, a chance to maybe for the gravity stars to recuperate, recover, get any injuries sorted, address anything to do with bikes. We've not had a break as big as this before.
No, and it really allows some of these new team changes and new athletes, you know, they might be chasing their tail a little. Some might get it and nail it first off, but a lot of the times new wheels, new tires, new chains, new angles, it's a different scenario altogether. You got to learn a new team, learn new physios, learn new, you know, the ways and ins and outs and the pros and cons of every single team. It's going to be stressful up until the start of July. And now we've got a bit of a block, a bit of a break to head into the second half of the season. And Enduro, we've got a couple more to go, but downhill, it's almost the halfway point. So you can really reset, re-establish what you need to work on, how the team needs to work together to be better and improve the bicycle, improve your performance, improve your team cohesion, because it's not just about the bicycle itself or the athlete itself. There's so many factors that come together to get that extra 100th of a second, or the massive 1 second. If you can get 1 second.
The margins in Enduro at the
it's
minute.
incredible.
We saw both titles come down to virtually the last stage last season.
Yeah.
So then we have our summer break, then 6th to the 8th of September, one of the big weekends on the gravity calendar, Ludenville, Peyrague's back, and it's Enduro, E-Enduro and downhill again, everyone under the same roof in what is becoming a modern classic of a venue.
Amazing venue, such a raw and exciting downhill track. I mean, the weather played its part there, but it was really soft and duffy, and it allowed our riders to dig into that kind of old school French classic downhill racing. Wide open grass turns, soft rutted duffy dirt. The French love their mountain bike riding, and they love their gravity sports even more so.
That downhill track, one of the standout tracks for me from last season, dug by Paulette, the master himself. It blended what I think people of our generation certainly think of when they think of a downhill track in France, a bit like Léger, those big, just widely taped, open piste, full chap, full send, into everything.
And rough, the braking bumps and the ruts, it looked like a motocross track up there, and just the way you see these riders commit, and then the speed and the height of some of them jumps, the gaps they were pulling, There's
One
no
of the best
way.
things I saw last year was Jackson Goldstone doing that gap in practice
Oh my
over the top of
goodness.
the berm.
It's hard to really convey how difficult that scenario was with the run-in, the jump before it, the commitment to the gap that we were talking
It
about.
started like 100 meters
It was
before the
not a
actual gap.
It's not a gap. That was like a scrub. It was a thing to scrub speed, an object to scrub speed, and homeboy sent that thing to the moon. All of a sudden, there's 20 of them doing it. I don't think there was that many, but it was amazing to see. Another sign of the evolution of this sport, this next generation, the way they're riding the bikes now. I mean, you have this weird contrast between someone like Loic and someone like Jackson. You couldn't get two athletes that are further apart. And a track like Ludenviel really showcased that difference in riding style and difference in speed and difference in the way that they approach a track like that. Amazing.
Middle of the summer, we have got one of the big races when we head to Haute-Savoie. Everything under one roof. Full spectrum of gravity, full spectrum of endurance racing, downhill, léger. We'll be watching the reactions on the line of Benoit Coulonge and Marine Cabirou winning there. Another, home double.
Iconic. Immortal. It's one of those performances that, like we saw with Valley Hole and Andy Kolb, French women, French men winning at home. There's no more pressure than that type of scenario. Everyone expects them to do well, but to deliver on race day in front of that crowd, those scenes were just incredible to watch, and the passion and how much that meant to them was really, really incredible to see. The enduro that we had in Châtel last year was a great first a race on a brand new venue, amazing conditions and trails and variety of riding. So I think that's going to be another really, really cool one.
It was a definite rider favourite, that enduro course, wasn't it? And as I say, in the regular enduro, both titles came down to basically the last stage. Jesse Melamed pushed Richie Rude all the way to the line. Morgan Char pushed Isabelle Corderie all the way to the line. It gives you an idea of that top echelon of enduro racing. It's never been closer.
Never been closer. And the times are getting less. The riders are pushing harder. Enduro racing, it's a really funny mix between e-enduro and enduro. Enduro racing now is so violent. You have to be just so on it. And 1 second, before you could chase seconds. You could take chunks out of your rivals. Now, 1 second, every single pedal stroke, every single corner, every single straightaway, rock, line, your focus, it's becoming so important for the entire race. And we're talking about 30, 40, 50 minutes worth of racing. E-enduro, we were racing over 10 stages in the same 6 or 7 hours. So you got to remember 10 trails worth of corners and rocks and speed. The bikes are heavier. You're pedaling up the hills as fast as you're pedaling down the hills. So Châtel's going to really, really define where our sport's heading, the racing, the importance of every single second, how much effort these riders are putting in. Châtel and the Haute-Savoie region's a fantastic place to really showcase our
If
sport.
you're going to go to one race, I think, as a fan who also wants to ride their bike when they're there, Haute-Savoie, go and do it. What a place to go and ride your bike. Léger, downhill, it's one of those tracks.
And it's becoming that place.
Speed is a win there. I mean, it's really cliched, but a win in Léger, especially for a French rider, that's the one they're going for, isn't it?
And our depth of French riders that we have right now. You're talking about Emery Piron, Thibaut Duprella, Benoit Coulonge. The list goes on and on and on.
Loic Bruni.
Loic Bruni, Laurence Vergier. I mean, the whole podium's been filled with French athletes before, and these other riders like Benoit's got to back it up. Emery hasn't raced there in a couple of years. Loic Bruni's Loic Bruni.
Duprella's on a new bike.
Duprella's on a new bike. Laurence Vergier, can he win?
Miriam Nicole coming back.
Marine
Cabarou's got to back it up. Someone's got to stop Valley Hole stopped herself in the second corner last season. What could she have done?
We can have a conversation just of the Frenchies.
Yeah.
That's not including the other 20 athletes that can win. It's amazing.
Big 10 days or so in Haute-Savoie. And then on to Pal-Aransal, Andorra. Huge race there for UCI World Championships this season. We've got downhill and cross country there. I mean, the high altitude factor not as prevalent for the gravity racers, I guess, but that new track in Andorra is proving to be a tough ask, and there's stuff on there that's as tough as you'll find.
And the speed, that was another really high speed track.
That chute where they go into that compression is horrific.
Really high speed. Bit of drama last year with the weather. It kind of affected our results slightly, but that's racing. It's part of it, and it's part of this new format, part of this new schedule. Andorra is always a crowd favourite, a fan favourite, and a rider. It's a wild rider favourite, that one. It's gonna provide some fantastic racing again. Second time on the new track. We've been there years and years before, but on this new track,
it's a bit of everything on it, really.
There's a lot going on in there.
Perhaps
Yeah.
more so than any other track in the calendar. There's sections off it that remind you of that Fort William one line for everyone full chat. There's the steeper, rootier bits that are kind of a bit more Val di Sole. There's some big chunky rock like we find in Leogang. There's just a lot of everything going on all at once, and it's it's right by the Commensal factory, their HQ, where Max Commensal goes to work every day.
Totally.
De Prella won there last time on a Commensal. Greg Menard nearly won, just lost out by over a tenth of a second. Nina Hoffman won on her Santa Cruz. Can produce drama as well.
Can produce plenty of drama. The altitude, the wind, the weather. We saw it last year, how quickly that weather rolls in and affects that track. The top section is extremely open and volatile.
Last year, with the weather that moved in, and Cedric Gracia and I had to be in the commentary booth, I think at 6:30 in the morning, just in case they could run it earlier. Yeah. We turned the monitor on, and it was a live shot of the start hut, and this whole start hut was doing this, and like your man was there with a sandwich blasted against his face. It was absolute bedlam, but looking forward to it. Andorra, always a good time, especially for UCI World Champs as well. Sure. Endurance, they've got the Olympics this year, they've also got Worlds, of course, but big race, UCI World Champs.
Big race. And it'll come off that big break after Leger and after the Haute Savoie, so riders will have time to specifically prep for that. They're going to have 4 to 6 weeks worth of preparation leading into the World Championships, so you get those custom bikes made and those custom kits prepared, and that's time for the big one.
There was that little spat last time out as well between De Prella and Bruni on social media after the race, and there's just there's a bit of needle. There's a bit of needle in Andorra. I like it. Finally then, on Le Plain, Mont Saint Anne. What a place we were treated to. I mean, we've both been going to Mont Saint Anne for years, but the autumnal colours, the track conditions last year.
Oh, beautiful, spectacular.
Biggest crowd I've seen there for a long time. Vallejo didn't need to go and absolutely boss absolutely every format of the weekend, but absolutely bossed everything throughout the entire weekend. Jackson Goldstone pulled off what was one of the big race results of the season. What a run.
Amazing run. And in Canada, another Canadian who won in Canada, our only 2-time winner from the season. Towards the back end of the year, he had so much drama throughout the year with his illnesses and surgeries and bits and pieces. And then to come out on the biggest stage towards the end,
first year as elite as well.
Benoit Collange in France, Andy Kolb in Austria, Jackson Goldstone,
Val di Sole and Mont Saint Anne.
Canadian,
Charlie
it's
Hatton for William.
Oh my goodness, it just goes on and on. But that was amazing. That was
Valentina
really cool.
Holo, I know she's changed team, she's changed bike and stuff, but I mean, we just talked about the dominance in Mont Saint Anne last year. It's a question of who can beat her this season, isn't it, really? Who's going to take it to Valley?
New team, but she's bringing a lot of her staff with her and a lot of her comfort zone, I would say. Ocean O'Callaghan won in America. Amazing. Shana Hearn had a really incredible first year on the World Cup circuit. So for her to step into this comfortable and fun team, from what it seems like from the outside, I think she's really chasing that, a team environment, people to hang out with. She was somewhat solo by herself on her last year team. So it's going to be great to see. And maybe that freedom and ability to express herself openly and freely with some friends and some teammates might just be enough to relax her into that dominance, which is definitely a wild scenario for the rest of her companions.
A difficult thing to look past. Talk to me about Enduro. Who do you see as being, I mean, we must be talking about Richie and Isabeau in Enduro as the riders to beat.
Yeah, for sure. You can't go past Richie. He's been one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant Enduro athlete of
If they could get another title each, that would make them the both successful. And
if they can get one more each, it'd be pretty incredible to see. Jesse Melmed, I think he's going to settle back into that team. Last year was his first year on the New Canyon Collective team. So his second year on that team, he'll relax and settle into it a little bit more. He had his own drama throughout the year. Isabeau, like, can Ella Connolly step up? Can Harriet Harnden step up and really set herself in that enduro championship leader? She's won races before. She's been on the podium, but winning that championship takes a lot more that Isabeau has shown us. Jack Moyer return to the podium? Charlie Murray really stood out as a constant rider last year.
Good year last
he
year,
wasn't
Charlie.
so peaky. He was just always there. Dimitri Tordo is going to be on a brand new team. We've seen a bunch of people move across to the E-Enduro for 2024. Jose Borges is now going to be a part of the E-Enduro roster. Ryan Gilchrist had a fantastic opening season on his first year as a pro debut.
A lot going on with that, e-bike as well. They're working very closely with Shimano. They're really taking the fight to Bosch.
Shimano's really invested in that e-bike and that new motor software and that race software, and it's going to be a little bit more of a level playing field now, that Shimano motor and software against the dominant Bosch. I mean, Fabian Burrell was exceptional last year, one of the greatest ever mountain bike athletes we've seen, and he continues to impress. Can anyone beat him?
It's always been a tough ask, no matter what bike he's on, to be honest with you.
If he shows up and he's committed and determined, it's going to be a tall ask. But there's more people now that are going to be nipping at his heels. The Yeti guys, there's more Canyon teammates who are going to try and knock him off. Can the KTM guys of Tiago and Pombo really step back up? And they were really good last year, really solid week in, week out. You know, the Gas team is stepping up leaps and bounds, and they come through last year as a bit of a surprise package, really.
They did.
Alex Marin stepped into that role and really took it on with that brand new bike of theirs. So there's a lot. There's a really lot. I think the target's on Fabian's back. He dominated last year in the E-Enduro, so I think he is the one to beat. And for Jesse, Charlie, Jack, will Martin return to winning? I hope Martin can get back up there and really get back onto the pointy end of the podium.
Yeah. Great to see Martin Mays back in action. I think, I mean, it's kind of part and parcel of how good a season we had last time.
Well, we had so many
we're heading
winners
into this one going. We've got some idea of the form, but
yeah, like Reese Verner won, Alex Rideau won, Yun Danu won in France. So we've had a bunch of debut winners that these guys are really going to look to step into that role. We've got a couple of young guns coming up. Sasha Kim just got a brand new factory ride for 2024 on the Giant Factory Off-Road team. Alex Rideau has won again. He'll be hungry to do that more often than just in his hometown. Can Charlie Murray win? Can Jack dominate again? There's so many question marks and questions and stories riddled throughout our entire season. Ella Connolly has had a drama-filled 2023. Morgan Shah was
Morgan Shah on
there.
the end of it.
My goodness, she was riding phenomenally last year. I don't know.
It's going to be a busy summer.
I've just confused myself, but I've also just made myself overly excited to get started.
Anyway, we are going to have to stop it there and go for some lunch and keep talking about bike racing in our own spare time. But thank you very much for joining us for this little season preview for Gravity. Don't forget, you can follow all the action, not just from mountain biking, but from just about everything on two wheels on Eurosport Cycling, the new home of cycling, as well as on the UCI Mountain Bike World Series channels, and that's on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll get Josh doing some dances on there in a bit this season. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you at the races.